You've been conditioned to seek approval, to maintain harmony, to be compliant, to be virtuous, but Carl Jung would argue that virtue can be a facade, and if you're not cautious, it becomes a confinement, because seeking approval doesn't make you kind, it makes you unseen. You don't gain more respect by always agreeing. You don't gain more affection by being easy to please. You don't gain more tranquility by being passive. You simply fade away quietly and no one notices. You believe you're being helpful, cooperative, supportive, but the reality is you're neglecting yourself. And every time you do it, you show the world that your needs are unimportant, that your time is adaptable, that your boundaries are flexible, that your silence means consent. Consider the moments when you felt most alive, most authentic. Those moments are often when you've allowed yourself to be truly seen, not just as a reflection of others' expectations, but as a unique individual with your own thoughts and feelings. These moments are fleeting for many, but they hold the key to understanding the depth of your own identity. Carl Jung didn't view people-pleasing as courtesy. He saw it as a shadow in disguise, a behavioral facade used to shield yourself from rejection, conflict, or detachment. But here's the reality: the more you please, the more you'll be exploited, not because people are wicked, but because people react to what you permit. Imagine a life where your actions are driven by your own desires and needs rather than the expectations of others. This isn't a life of selfishness, but one of authenticity. It's a life where you honor your own feelings and thoughts as much as you honor those of others. And if you never reveal the parts of you that want to say no, that want to disagree, that want to be alone, you'll become an empty shell, a form shaped to fit into everyone else's expectations. And one day, you'll wake up and wonder why you're exhausted, why you're bitter, why you feel insincere, why no one truly sees you. Jung had a term for this: the persona, the mask you were instructed to wear. The persona is the version of you that was taught by your parents, your culture, your teachers, to be acceptable, to fit in, to gain approval, to avoid punishment, to survive. And you needed it. You still do in some ways. You can't go through life saying everything you think, acting on every impulse. You need a mask for the world, for social roles, for peace. But here's the danger Jung warned about. When you believe your mask is your identity, you lose your essence. Think about the times when you've worn this mask so tightly that you've forgotten what lies beneath. Those are the moments when you've lost touch with your true self, when the lines between who you are and who you pretend to be blur into obscurity. Because you're not here to be agreeable, you're here to be genuine. You're not here to fit into everyone else's narrative. You're here to write your own. But you can't do that if your first instinct is to keep everyone comfortable. Consider the relationships in your life. Are they built on the foundation of your true self, or are they constructed on the shaky ground of your compliance? True connections are forged in the fires of authenticity, where both parties are seen and valued for who they truly are. And this is what people-pleasers never realize until it's too late. Every time you avoid saying no, you say yes to self-erasure. The high price of being liked. You think the cost of speaking your mind is conflict, but the real cost is bitterness. Reflect on the bitterness that has crept into your life. It's a sign, a beacon, calling you back to yourself. It's a reminder that your needs and desires are valid and important. You think saying no is selfish, but the real selfishness is staying silent while secretly resenting everyone for not reading your mind. You think making people happy is noble, but the real nobility is having boundaries so clear that no one has to guess who you are. Jung understood that repression creates distortion. And when you repress your anger, your instincts, your voice, you don't become kinder, you become passive-aggressive, bitter, detached, because you know deep down you're not being honest. You're performing, you're curating, you're managing people's emotions instead of expressing your truth. And eventually your body will show the signs. Tired all the time, burned out, detached, afraid to disappoint, overthinking every reply, overanalyzing every interaction. That's not sensitivity, that's emotional confinement. Imagine the freedom that comes with releasing these burdens, the freedom to be yourself, to express your true feelings, and to live a life that is authentically yours. And it gets worse because the more you please people, the more you teach them to expect your compliance. You train them to walk all over you, and they will. Not always because they're cruel, but because you said yes. So many times they stopped, believing you had a no. Think about the expectations you've set in your relationships. Have you taught others to expect your compliance, or have you shown them the strength of your boundaries? True respect comes from a place of mutual understanding and appreciation for each other's authenticity. You can't be loved if you're not known. The people you're trying so hard to please, they don't know the real you. They only know the curated version you've shown them. And you're afraid to change now, because if you suddenly set boundaries, they'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you're cold, but that's not the truth. The truth is, they've just gotten used to your silence, your softness, your submission. And when you start being honest, it feels like aggression. Not because you're hurting them, but because your honesty is finally protecting you. Jung would say, this is the moment where individuation begins. Individuation isn't self-improvement, it's self-possession. It's the process of becoming a fully integrated human being, with a backbone, a shadow, a voice, and a know that means something. Individuation is the journey of reclaiming all the parts of yourself that you've exiled in order to fit in. It's about integrating your shadow, the parts of you that you've hidden away because they were deemed unacceptable. And until you get there, you'll always feel slightly empty, like something is missing, like your life doesn't fully belong to you. That's not depression, that's your real self trying to wake you up, trying to scream through your fake smiles, trying to cut through your agreeable emails, trying to break out of the script you've been acting out for years. And the only way out is to stop pleasing. What happens when you finally stop? People will get uncomfortable. Some will get angry. Some will leave. Some will try to guilt you back into being soft. Let them. That's not cruelty. That's clarity, because you're not here to please people. You're here to be whole. You're here to say what needs to be said, to set boundaries that disappoint others but protect your soul, to walk away from people who only loved you when you were easy to control. Imagine the strength and peace that come from living a life true to yourself. A life where your actions and words are aligned with your deepest values and desires. Jung would tell you this isn't selfish, this is your awakening. And now we'll explore the psychology of that awakening. Why people-pleasing is rooted in childhood survival. How to recognize when your persona is running the show, and how to begin the process of breaking the pattern without losing your relationships or yourself. Carl Jung didn't call it people-pleasing. He called it a betrayal of the self. Because you weren't born this way. You didn't enter the world hoping to please everyone. You weren't designed to say yes when you meant no. You weren't built to hide your truth just to keep the peace. You were trained into it, molded, conditioned. And the worst part is you thought it was love. You thought staying quiet made you mature. You thought sacrificing your needs made you generous. You thought suppressing your emotions made you strong. But the truth, it made you disappear. And the person people love, the person they admire, depend on, praise, isn't really you. It's your persona, how the persona is formed. Jung defined the persona as the mask you wear to survive the demands of society. It's not fake, it's functional. You put it on to navigate school, family, relationships, work. It helps you fit in. It helps you get by. But when you start to identify with the mask, when you forget where it ends and you begin, you lose the one thing that makes life real: authenticity. Think about the masks you wear in different areas of your life. Are they serving you, or are they holding you back from true connection and authenticity? And this is exactly what happens to chronic people pleasers. Somewhere in childhood they learned that being honest meant being rejected, that expressing frustration meant being punished, that having needs meant being selfish. So they adapted, they smiled when they wanted to cry, they said yes when they wanted to scream, they acted small so others could feel big. They learned that love isn't given, it's earned through performance. And so the mask became permanent. Reflect on the moments when you felt most authentic. Those moments are the key to unlocking a life of true fulfillment and connection. What Jung knew that modern psychology misses. Most modern advice tells you to speak up, set boundaries, take time for yourself. It sounds nice. But Jung went deeper. He believed people-pleasing is not just a behavior problem, it's a soul fracture. Because when you abandon your true self, over and over again, you don't just lose your voice, you lose your identity. Consider the parts of yourself that you've abandoned in order to please others. Reclaiming those parts is the journey of individuation, the path to wholeness and authenticity. You start asking, who am I without this role? What if people leave when I stop giving? Will anyone stay if I finally say what I feel? These aren't surface-level fears. They're existential because your survival used to depend on being liked, and now you've confused being liked with being safe. But the problem is every time you choose safety over truth, you lose a little more of yourself. Think about the safety you've sought in the approval of others. True safety comes from within, from a deep knowing and acceptance of your true self. You become someone others depend on, but no one really knows. And this is the secret most people never admit. The people pleaser gets love, but it always feels fake, because deep down, they're loving a version of you that doesn't even exist. They're loving the agreeable you, the reliable you, the flexible you. But what happens when you're tired? What happens when you have limits? What happens when you finally say no more? That's when the love disappears, and what's left? Guilt, silence, self-doubt. But Jung would say good, because that's the beginning of your real life. Individuation, becoming whole, not liked. Imagine the freedom and peace that come from living a life true to yourself, where your actions and words are aligned with your deepest values and desires. Jung's idea of individuation is the antidote to people-pleasing. It's the process of reuniting with your shadow. The parts of you that you exiled to stay accepted, your anger, your selfishness, your pride, your truth. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's saying, yes, I care about others, but I care about myself too. Yes, I want peace, but not at the cost of my truth. Yes, I love you, but I won't abandon me to keep you. That's not rebellion. That's maturity. Think about the maturity that comes from honoring your true self. It's a maturity that allows for deep, meaningful connections and a life lived with integrity and authenticity. And if someone can't handle that, let them go. Because Jung believed the self doesn't emerge through approval. It emerges through conflict, through confronting the people who are used to your silence, through disappointing those who only loved your compliance, through risking rejection to become real. And here's the twist. When you stop people-pleasing, you don't lose relationships. You lose imbalanced ones. You lose the people who benefited from your self-abandonment, and you make space for people who see you, love you, and can stand beside you without needing to control you. Imagine the relationships that await you when you live authentically. Relationships built on mutual respect, understanding, and a deep appreciation for each other's true selves. How to know your persona is controlling you? Jung said, "The persona is dangerous when it becomes too rigid. When you're always the strong one, always the nice one, always the calm one, always the understanding one, then it's not a tool, it's a cage, and you'll know you're trapped when you feel exhausted after socializing. You overthink every decision. You're afraid of letting people down. You say yes out of fear, not desire. You feel unseen even in close relationships. Think about the rigidity of the roles you play in your life. Are they serving you, or are they holding you back from true connection and authenticity? These are not small problems. They are signs that your identity is cracking under the pressure of performance. And the longer you pretend, the more lost you become, not because you're weak, but because the mask has become too convincing. And now even you can't tell where it ends. But here's the good news. The moment you realize this, you're free to change. You don't need permission. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need courage. The courage to pause before you say yes. The courage to let people feel disappointed. The courage to walk away from approval and walk toward authenticity. Imagine the strength and peace that come from living a life true to yourself, where your actions and words are aligned with your deepest values and desires. Carl Jung didn't want you to become rude or cold. He wanted you to become so aligned with your truth that no one could manipulate you again. And now we'll explore exactly how to do that, how to stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace, how to rebuild your identity outside of the nice role, and how to become someone who is respected, not just tolerated, all without becoming cold, bitter, or fake. Think about the guilt that arises when you set boundaries. It's a sign of your conditioning, a reminder of the work you need to do to reclaim your true self. By now, something inside you is shifting. You're starting to see how much of your life has been a performance, how much of your identity was built on keeping others comfortable, how often you've said yes when your whole body whispered no. And maybe for the first time you're asking the question, who am I when I stop pleasing? That's not an easy question. It's not just about changing your behavior. It's about changing the foundation of who you've been trained to be. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. Because when you stop pleasing people, you don't just lose comfort. You lose your former self. And what rises in its place isn't someone cruel or bitter. It's someone real, someone who doesn't need to be liked to be at peace, someone who doesn't need approval to feel worthy, someone who can say no without guilt and yes without fear. Imagine the freedom and peace that come from living a life true to yourself, where your actions and words are aligned with your deepest values and desires. That's what individuation really is. Not spiritual fluff, not moral perfection, but raw, uncomfortable truth becoming identity. So how do you become that person? Let's go step by step. 1. Recognize the guilt loop for what it is. When you first stop pleasing people, you'll feel guilt. You'll feel it in your stomach, in your throat, in your silence. You'll feel like you're being mean, like you're letting people down, like you're doing something wrong. But Jung would say, this is not guilt. This is withdrawal. You're detoxing from a life of approval addiction. You're experiencing the emotional discomfort of reclaiming your power after years of giving it away. Think about the guilt as a sign of your growth, a reminder of the strength and courage it takes to live authentically. Of course, it feels heavy, but that heaviness isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you're finally moving. Let the guilt come. Don't fight it. Don't overanalyze it. Just feel it and do the right thing anyway. That's how power returns in the space where guilt no longer dictates your actions. 2. Redefine your value. People pleasers get their worth from one thing: how useful they are to others. If you're helpful, you feel worthy. If you're needed, you feel safe. If you're liked, you feel important. But Jung would tell you this is not worth. It's conditional. Performance. And the danger, the moment you stop being useful, you feel replaceable. So the work is simple but not easy. You must redefine what makes you valuable, not your utility, not your sacrifice, not your compliance, but your truth, your presence, your boundaries, your ability to be fully yourself, even when it disappoints people. Think about the value you place on your own needs and desires. Honoring them is not selfish. It's necessary for a life of true fulfillment and authenticity. That's where your real value lives, not in what you do for others, but in what you no longer do against yourself. 3. Learn to disappoint without apology. Let this be your next milestone. You can disappoint people and still be good, still be kind, still be worthy. You can say no without over-explaining, without apologizing, without softening it to make them feel better.